up. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. We'll start in a minute or so. Right. Okay, right, we've got quite a few people here already. So yes, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Sandy, and yeah, I'm running this workshop today to introduce you to emotional freedom technique, or EFT. I'm an advanced EFT practitioner and trainer and have been working with EFT since 2007, and I've been an EFT trainer since 2016, I think. It is an amazing tool, and I'm really excited to share a bit more about it today. Right. So I think, yeah, I'd like to be quite punctual and obviously honor you because you're all here on time. So I'd say let's get started. If you have any questions, there will be time at the end, but I'm also keeping an eye on the chat. So if there is anything that, that you need clarification about or that you want to ask, feel free to use the chat, and I do my best to keep an eye on it and then to answer questions. Right, okay. So just a quick overview. So we've got just under an hour today. And yeah, as I said, I want to introduce the exciting tool EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, to you. And in the process of that, I also want to share 3 simple steps to use EFT and to increase your well-being. Then we'll do an EFT tapping sample sequence. So you get to practice to use EFT to see how it works. And then I'll have a few suggestions on how to use EFT. And then obviously there's time at the end for questions as well. I'd like this to be interactive, so I might ask you at some point to put something in the chat, like when we do the tapping, maybe about your experience and what you felt. And as I said, if you have any questions, then just use the chat and I'll answer the questions. Right. Okay, so let's get started with a brief introduction. So what is EFT? EFT is basically a combination of ideas that come from the traditional Chinese medicine. So perhaps you've heard about acupuncture points, certain meridian points that are used in the traditional Chinese medicine. But with EFT, first of all, we don't use needles. So, if you're familiar with acupuncture, they use needles. With EFT, we don't. We use our fingers to tap on certain meridian points. But that is not the only thing. It's combined with modern psychology. So it's not a passive approach, it's an active tool, a therapeutic tool to help us face our emotions, deal with our emotions, and, to feel better, to process them so that we get to a state where we feel calmer. It's a body-mind connection thing, because we're not just tapping on points, we also verbalize and express what we feel. And this is all part of the field called energy psychology. EFT was first created in the 1970s by a psychiatrist called Dr. Roger Callahan. Back then it was called TFT, Thought Field Therapy. But he then trained other people, and one of his students was called Gary Craig. And he simplified the whole method because originally it was quite complex. But Gary Craig simplified the whole process, called it EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and he made it available for free because he thought it was so amazing, everybody should know about it. So that's wonderful. We're very grateful to Gary Craig. So EFT can basically help to let go of negative emotions in a safe way. That's why it's called emotional freedom technique. We want to perhaps be free of certain negative emotions, not the positive ones. Let's keep those. Right. Okay. So I have a very, oh no, I'll have this in a moment. Right, so let me just quickly summarize what EFT can help with. So one of the things EFT can do is it can switch off the fight or flight mode that we find ourselves in when we're stressed or when we're anxious. You know, we might have stress, anxiety, fear, pain, and that can keep us in fight or flight mode or survival mode. And um, and EFT can help reduce those feelings of stress, anxiety, pain, fear, and thereby it can help to improve our overall health because it helps us to calm the body and the mind. And once we're calmer, we can change perspective a bit more easily. We can let go of negative feelings rather than holding on to them. And when we're in that calm state, then it's easier to find a solution or a new way forward rather than feeling stuck. I'm just seeing as a question, check. We are getting the slides. I can make this, I can send the slides to Lauren, but the whole session is recorded. So I think the recording will be made available. Right. Okay. So EFT can also help with sleep problems, you know, especially when, you know, I don't know if you've ever been awake in bed and thinking about things again and again, not being able to switch off. So EFT can help with that as well. And overall, it can help release unpleasant emotions, help us get unstuck, and even change certain limiting beliefs we may have. Okay, so now I'm coming on to a quick challenge demo. So, task, think for a moment, introduce yourself. Can you do that? Can you, in a moment, turn on your videos and your audios and then tell the group about yourself for 1 minute? How do you feel thinking about that? Okay, no, we're not going to do that. Don't worry. Don't leave. Please don't leave. This is just a quick demonstration because if you imagine you were asked to speak in front of a group of strangers, to either introduce yourself or give a quick presentation, how does that make you feel? So, oops. So reflect for a moment on your own physical reactions if you had one. What did you feel when you saw the slides? Were you like, oh yeah, I get to introduce myself. I want to be an influencer. I like being on stage. Or were you like, oh no, I don't want to switch on my video. I don't want anybody to see me. I get nervous speaking in front of a group. So if you had that feeling, you are not alone. It is quite common. But another reflection I'd like you to make is, where did you feel it? Did you feel that in your body? And then think for a moment, why did you feel the idea of having to speak in front of a group? Why did it make you feel maybe nervous or anxious? Why do you think that is? Because perhaps you've had in the past some negative experiences when you were asked to speak in front of a group. And for many of us, it goes back to childhood. Maybe first day of school, we had to introduce ourselves, or maybe we were called by a teacher and didn't know the answer, and other classmates laughed at us or giggled or something like that. So that feeling that we're feeling perhaps now with the same idea is a trigger because something happened in the past. Yeah, thank you. Somebody said, I'll panic, anxious in my chest, just the thought of presenting. Thank you for sharing. So that is quite common, but because we had negative experiences in the past, they sort of get recorded in our energy field, and our body and our brain want to keep us safe. And if we had negative experiences in the past and we're presented with something similar, our body goes like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And that reaction is often so quick, so imminent that we don't even have time to think about it. So the result is that we're basically trying to maybe run away or to, try to get out of it or leave the Zoom room. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to introduce myself. Because basically, the cause of most negative emotions is a disruption in the body's energy system. So if you had a negative experience in the past that's still stored, and in a moment when we're faced with a similar situation, that old pattern, old fear gets reactivated almost automatically. It's a bit like, like a phobia, a person who might be afraid of a spider. They see a spider, and from a logical point of view, they know the spider is harmless. It's not going to hurt me. It's really tiny. It's over there. But the reaction, the fear is illogical. It's imminent. And there is a reason, something that happened in the past. Maybe as a child, they watched a film, there was something scary. They saw somebody else being scared of a spider, and that's learned behavior. So all that's energy that's stored in our system. And it can disrupt our body. So basically, when we have a distressing memory, and it can be conscious or subconscious, we get triggered, and the energy system we have gets disrupted, and as a result we have a negative emotion like panic or anxiety, or feeling like, oh, feel it in my throat, I can't speak. So we're not doing that, no introduction. I just wanted to demonstrate how quickly our energy can change, how quickly we can get triggered. And the good news is with EFT, we can let go of past events, past negative emotions, to clear that, so that we don't carry around that burden and that fear. Because what EFT does, by tapping on certain meridian points while the energy is active, and we tap, we send energy in the system like a wave through our channels, and then the blocks we have get cleared. And then we remove the negative emotions, and then we feel neutral. I'm not saying that you would suddenly feel like, oh, amazing, I have to give a speech, fantastic. No, that's not it. We're not going to the opposite, but we might have a more neutral approach if we cleared the energy from past events. I hope that makes sense. Yes, there are symptoms. Reflections helps before you allow it. Yes, thank you very much. Right, okay. So let me talk a little bit more about EFT. So as I said before, the human body has an energy circulation system, which is similar to the blood circulation system that we have. And as you can see in the pictures, we've got all these lines, these meridian channels. And that's sort of what acupuncture is based on. And the tapping points or meridian points are all energy points on that circulation system. But with EFT, we don't use all of them because there are hundreds. We only use the end points of the meridians, and they are quite close under the skin. So we tap on these energy points with our fingers. So we don't need to use needles, and we can rebalance and clear the body's energy system while at the same time verbalizing our feelings while tapping. And that helps to reduce the intensity. So basically, EFT is acupuncture for emotions, but without the needles. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. Right, so it's called emotional freedom technique, and you may wonder, why focus on emotions? What are emotions? Well, actually, emotions are energy in motion. So if you reflect for a moment, what does an intense negative emotion feel like? If you had a reaction when I asked you to present yourself and turn your camera on, then maybe you had one of those intense emotions, and maybe you can feel it in the body. So emotions are energy in motion, and we can feel them in the body. If you've ever felt like really angry or frustrated, sometimes there's energy behind it. But if we don't express these energies in a safe way, and we swallow and smile and pretend we're okay, or we just not express them, unexpressed emotions can lead to blocks in our energy system, and that can lead to low energy. So if you imagine our energy system a bit like a river, like a stream that flows and moves constantly. But if we don't express emotions, we swallow and smile, and all that energy behind the emotion, if it doesn't get expressed but turned inwards, it's like throwing a pebble into a river. And one pebble doesn't really make the river stop. So, but if you do that often enough, swallow and smile, no, I'm okay, or not expressing things in a safe way, and pebble after pebble after pebble, you know, the energy or the movement of the river starts to slow down a bit because it has to find its way around the pebbles. And that's when we can feel like we've got low energy. We feel constantly tired, or even we might get more frequent infections because our body doesn't work at optimal level because we've got so much stuff that's going on the inside. But EFT is a safe way to express our emotions. And that's obviously, you can start today, do some tapping when there's negative emotions, but we can also slowly, step by step, go backwards and take those pebbles out of the river so that the energy can start flowing again. And then we start feeling better, we feel healthier, we have more energy, we sleep better. So it's a wonderful technique. I hope you can sense my enthusiasm. I absolutely love EFT. I do use it quite often, and it's a wonderful technique, and it's very safe. And you get to experience it in a moment. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning, I want to share 3 steps to improve your well-being. And the first step is awareness. Now, I talked a lot about emotion, but you have no idea how many people walk around and are not aware of the anxiety or the stress level that they carry with them. So the first step is to become aware. What triggers negative emotions? How am I feeling throughout the day? And then maybe start noticing the changes in our body. There might be physical changes. We might have like a heartbeat. Our breath might be shallow if we're stressed. There might be emotional changes. We have certain feelings coming up. And awareness is important because we can get used to feeling the way we feel without noticing. So it's almost a bit like if you're carrying a rucksack with heavy books or heavy shopping with you, and you have to walk quite far. Initially, when you put it on, you think, oh, that really feels heavy. But as you keep moving, you sort of get used to the weight. And then it's almost like you don't notice it anymore. It's only when you take off the rucksack, and then your shoulders start aching. It's like, oh, wow, that was really heavy. I didn't realize how much my shoulders were carrying. So with those emotions, it can feel a bit like that. We can get used to carrying those emotions on a daily level. But when we become a bit more aware, we can then take action. Once I know how I feel, I can take action. I can learn strategies to manage my stress level or to work on my fears, or learn ways to deal with negative emotions. For example, with mindfulness, with breath work, or with EFT tapping. Right, okay. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Right, so you can still type away if there are questions. I don't want to go too fast, I want to overwhelm you. So I was just wanted to give you a bit of background information of EFT. So you don't need to know all the theory. We will do a practice, a demonstration in a moment, and then you get to experience that. But as I said, first step is become aware of how you're actually feeling, and perhaps just tune into your body maybe several times a day, mornings, lunch and afternoon, or evenings, and see how you feel. And if something is not quite right, I think, okay, maybe I can do something. I can take action. Right, okay, there is a question. Let me just read it quickly. Okay. I freeze physically when I have negative emotions. I can't move, so can I break out of that and do tapping and I'm frozen? Yes, so you can definitely use tapping when things go bad. But you say if you freeze physically, if that means you're for a moment unable to move, there might be something you might want to put in before the tapping, and that is a breathing exercise. And that's actually something that I wanted to teach you next. Because step 2, and let me just move the slide. Oops. One too far. There we go. Step 2, once we're aware of our emotions, we can take action. And one other tool that I absolutely love is 5-7 breathing. It was originally called 7-11 breathing, but I sort of adjusted it and do 5-7 breathing. So the idea is we breathe in and count to 5 and breathe out and count to 7. And that changes the chemistry in the body. So, for example, if a negative emotion does trigger us and we do freeze physically in that moment, we feel like we can't move, we can't act, we can't do something. That's in a way a bit of panic there that's keeping us stuck. But if we can't move physically, we can always use our breath. And with this breathing technique, we can unfreeze and feel a bit calmer, reduce the emotional impact of that negative feeling, and create calmness. And once we're a bit better, we can then use EFT. Or you can use EFT right away if that's an option for you. But I love the 5-7 breathing. And I want to do that with you. So let me explain. The idea is we breathe in and count to 5 and breathe out and count to 7. It doesn't matter whether we breathe through our nose or our mouth. It doesn't make a difference, whatever feels more comfortable. But what this technique does is the counting keeps your mind busy, because it's often our mind that triggers certain thoughts, and the thoughts then create a response of fear or panic. But if we keep our mind busy with counting, then we can't think any negative thoughts at the same time. We don't need to hold our breath in between. I know there is lots of different breathing techniques, and I know there's the nose breathing, there is breath work where you hold your breath in between. If you're familiar with those, then use those. They can also help you to unfreeze and reduce emotional impact or create calmness. But this one is one of my favorites. That's why I wanted to share it. So I suggest we do a few breaths together so you can experience the calmness. But little disclaimer, only do this breathing now with me if you're in a safe, comfortable environment. If you're driving or you're somewhere where you need to keep up your concentration, then don't do it and do it later, because this has a calming effect. And if you're driving, obviously, you need to be alert and you don't want to be too calm. But if you're in a comfortable situation somewhere, you're at your desk or on the sofa, then let's do this together. Right. The other thing I forgot to mention is it's a good idea to put our hands on our chest, on our belly, so that when we breathe in and out, we can feel the movement of the breath. We can feel our body move, and that increases the calming effect. And it's almost like giving ourselves a hug and giving our body the signal that it's safe to relax. Right. Are you ready? Okay, so let's take a deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, that was just one breath. If that feels too long, you can adjust the numbers. The numbers are not set in stone. what's important is that the out breath is slightly longer than the in breath. So I know sometimes when we feel anxious, we have a shallow breath, or when we're very stressed, and then even breathing into 5 might feel too long, and we don't want to rush the counting because it's supposed to be relaxing. So if you feel these numbers are too long, you can try breathe in, count to 4, and out to 6. Or if things are really intense and you feel like you're physically frozen because you got triggered by negative emotion, you can even breathe in, count to 3, and out and count to 4 or 5. And this technique can also help stopping a panic attack, by the way. Right. Okay, so let's just do a couple more breaths, and hopefully you experience the relaxing effect it has. And if 5-7 is too long, feel free to do your own rhythm and do like into 4 and out to 6. Okay, right, so let's do it again. And in 2, 3, 4, 5, and out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in 2, 3, 4, 5, and out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just do one more in your own time. Okay. Right, so I see a question in the chat. I think I've answered that we don't need to hold our breath, and it doesn't matter if you breathe through your nose or your mouth, whatever feels more comfortable. No, we don't need to pause. It's supposed to be a flow breath activity. So we breathe in slowly and then slowly out. We don't need to hold it in between. You can, if that's something you're used to with a different breathing technique, you can obviously adapt it so it works for you, but it's supposed to be a flow, breathing in slowly and breathing out, like the waves rolling into the shore and back out. Okay. Good. So that's step 2. So first step, remember, it's become aware of any negative emotions you might have or hold. Step 2 is take action. Do something, do some breathing, some mindfulness, or use EFT tapping. And that's step 3. So now we come to the practical part of the workshop. So EFT, how does it work? Okay, so we've got on that picture the tapping points. So we've got several points, and we usually go down. We start on top of the head and go down. No particular reason, it's just because it's easier to remember. If you feel you want to have a different order, that's fine too. Right. Okay, so let me just show you the tapping points, and I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment that you can see me. Right. So I'm going to take you through the points first so that you're familiar with the tapping points, and then I explain the procedure, and then we do a practice session together. Okay? Right. So the first point is for the setup statement, there is a point at the side of the hand. So we usually start with the setup statement and explain in a moment what that is. So it's the side of the hand, and we use 2 or 3 fingers just gently tapping on the side. Okay. And then the top of the head is sort of the first point when we do our sequence. So it's the top of the head somewhere in the middle. So we tap with 2, we can do 1 finger, 2, 3 fingers, it doesn't really matter. And also EFT is such a forgiving process that, and we have so many meridian points, so even if you don't hit exactly the right spot, there's probably another one next to it. So don't worry if you are a perfectionist, let that go. You can't really get EFT wrong. Even if you miss out a point, you don't remember all the points, it doesn't matter. As long as you keep tapping, you keep the energy moving. Right, so that's the first point, top of the head. Then we've got the beginning of the eyebrow. So just where the eyebrow starts, above the eye. And you can do that with me if you like. Unless you're driving, then please don't. So it's the eyebrow, beginning of the, just where the eyebrow starts. And then we sort of move to the side of, I'm going to take my glasses off for a minute. Then the side of the eye. So it's eyebrow first. And then we sort of move to the side, just to the eye. And then we move underneath. You don't have to do the movement. I'm just sort of whoop, 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 show this to make it easier for you to follow. But it's top of the head, eyebrow, side of the eye, and then under the eye. And then the next point is under the nose, so just that little area between the nose and the lips. And then it's under the lips, on the chin, just a little indent point. Okay, and then we've got the collarbone point, and I'll show you the picture again on the next slide. I've got all the points on the picture. I just want to show you. So the collarbone point is basically down a couple of inches and to the side. So under the collarbone, so somewhere around there. I mean, if you poke around, if you find like a sore spot, you can use that one. But there's several points here. But just the easiest way is actually if you just have your hands hanging and whoop. You know, sort of put your hands up and where your fingers land, that's usually the collarbone point. And you can tap with one hand, with both hands, left or right, it doesn't matter. Right. Okay, so that's the collarbone point. So just a quick reminder, we start top of the head, then the eyebrow point, side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, the chin point, the collarbone point, and then the next one is under the arm. So it's under the couple of inches under the armpit. For women, it's the bra line where the bra is, or it's just a couple of inches. So, and if any point is uncomfortable for you, you can leave them out. Okay, so as I said, EFT is very forgiving. So we just tap under the arm a few times. Okay, and then we've got the finger point. So it's palm facing towards us. And then we tap on the side of the nail bed. So it's not the top, it's when you hold the fingers like this, is the side. It looks like the top, but it's the side. So not there, but there. So we tap through all 5 fingers. And again, left or right doesn't matter. It's the side of the nail bed. So not the top, but the side. All 5 fingers. That's it. And that's one round. And if we were to repeat it, we would just go back, top of the head, eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, chin point, collarbone, under the arm, and then the finger points. And you can change left or right, you know, whatever feels comfortable. Right. Okay. Let me just put the slide back up. Okay. I think I saw a question. How many times do we tap? It doesn't actually matter because the way it works, and you'll understand in a second, is because we verbalize our feelings. So we have a reminder phrase. We talk and tap, basically. So if we have a reminder phrase, you know, this anxiety in my chest, we tap for that short phrase. And then with the next time we move on, so this anxiety in my chest, or this feeling of frustration, or this anger in my belly, or this situation that makes me angry. So we talk while tapping. So you don't have to count how many times. Okay. Another question, should you do both sides at the same time or just one? It's up to you. Some people do both sides, obviously top of the head is one. You can do both sides if that feels comfortable. Well, I think under the arm might feel a bit funny, but you can do both. It doesn't matter. I tend to do one side. I mean, it's a circle. It does go around, so it doesn't matter whether you do your left or right-handed, or even you switch halfway through. The idea is to get energy into that energy system, to move energy around and to unblock our negative emotions. Right. Okay, but hopefully it will all become clear when we do it all together. And now it seems complex when you first hear about it. If you're new to EFT, you might feel like, oh, there's quite a lot to remember. But once you've done it a couple of times, it's very easy, I promise. Okay, so these are the tapping points. Now, let's look at the basic recipe. So I mentioned there is a setup statement, and I'll explain that next. The setup statement is with the side of the hand. And then we do our tapping sequence where we focus on the emotion that we want to release. And then we repeat the sequence. That's it. So that's the basic recipe. Hopefully that is easy enough. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the setup statement. The setup statement is basically we state the problem or the feeling that we want to work on, and then we use an acceptance statement. So, for example, we use the side of the hand with the setup statement. We would say, even though I have this problem or have this feeling, this anxiety or distress, I love and accept myself. I love and accept myself anyway. If the love part, loving myself, is difficult to say, but just say, I accept myself, or I accept myself and I'm okay. So the concept is we name or state the problem. That's our target, what we want to work on. We tune into our body, we want to feel it, but we need to accept where we are, because we can only move forward when we accept a feeling. It might not be comfortable, we might not like it, but what a lot of people do is they try to run away from their feelings and then they come chasing after us. But with EFT, rather than running away, we stop, we turn around, we face the feelings. Like, for this moment, I accept that I feel this way, but I'm doing something to shift this, to move things, to feel better afterwards. I hope that makes sense. So we have the setup statement, even though, for example, even though I feel this anxiety in my tummy or in my belly, I love and accept myself. Or it might be, even though I've got this tension or this pain in my shoulder, I accept myself and I'm okay. Or I accept this pain, or I accept the situation. So we need to accept where we are, because otherwise we might be in denial. And then if we're in denial, we can't really change anything. So this is quite important, accepting where we are, naming the problem and say, I accept it. Not nice, okay, but just for the moment, this is what it is, and I'm working on it. Okay, so we repeat the setup statement 2 or 3 times. Okay, there's another question about daily routines. I'll get to that after we've done the demonstration. So if you bear with me, I will answer your question. If not, ask again at the end. Right, so that's the setup statement. And now let's get started. So the starting point is to set a specific tapping target, and then we measure the intensity. So think for a moment of a target that you want to tap on something, but choose something small. Don't go with a big T trauma, because obviously this is an online setting and I want you all to be safe. So choose something daily. Maybe you feel tired because you didn't sleep well and that makes you feel a bit annoyed, or, you know, or something small. Somebody said something mean, not something that's off the scale, ideally. And I'll do a demonstration in a moment with the idea of overwhelm, where you can choose something different. Right. So think of an emotion that you'd like to work on, that you'd like to sort of move, and then see if you can locate it in your body. Because it's an energy. If you know it is anger or it is anxiety, you know, because you can feel it. So then tune into your body. Where does the feeling sit? Is it in your belly? Is it in your chest? Is it a tension in your shoulder? Is it in your big toe? You know, it doesn't matter. So just see if you can locate where the emotion is. And then maybe you can describe it. You know, if it's in your belly, does it feel like a red balloon, or does it feel like a knot in your stomach, or does it feel like a panic feeling in your throat if you think about giving a speech, for example, or do a presentation? So that's what you can use when we do the demo. Or you can just, if you can't think of anything, don't worry about it, then just use what I'm using and just experience and learn how the tapping works. Right. Okay, so when you have your target, a specific emotion, and you found where it sits in your body, then think, how much does it bother you right now on a scale from 0 to 10? And then give it a number. See if you can pinpoint it. If you're not sure about the number, maybe guess what number would it be? Or you can use a range. If you're new to scaling or measuring, it might be quite difficult initially to find the right number, but maybe it is somewhere between a 5 and a 7. Then it's probably a 6, or maybe it's between 6 and 7 somewhere. So you can give it a range, you know, or just low, medium, high if you really feel like you can't work with the numbers. But we want to measure it so we can check on our progress, because we measure before, in between, and then after our tapping sequence to see where we are. That's also feedback to see if it works. Right. Okay, and then you've got your target, hopefully you've got your number, maybe make a note or a mental note, and then while we do the tapping, focus on that feeling. Now, if things get too intense, because with tapping, we tune into the emotion. If you're sort of person who's ignored their feeling and be completely disconnected, something might come up. If you feel overwhelmed, then just stop for a moment and just do the 5-7 breathing, or even 4 into 4 out to 6, or into 3 and out to 4 or 5. Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody's safe. Emotions can be scary. It is a safe technique, but emotions can feel a bit overwhelming sometimes, okay? But the other thing is either stop and do some breathing, or just keep tapping, because if you keep moving the emotions, the intensity will go down. But hopefully nothing's going to happen. I'm just obviously saying that very occasionally, sometimes, you know, we might go in a 5 on the level, and then as soon as we start tapping, it might go up to a 6 or 7 or an 8 if it does, and it feels too much, and just stop and breathe. Okay, so let's do the practice, the demonstration. So I've chosen some words here that I'll use. If this resonates, you can just repeat the same words after me. Or if you want to work on your own target, just replace the words. So if I say, even though I feel overwhelmed, you might say, even though I feel angry, or I feel frustrated, or I feel stressed, or I feel anxious, or whatever it might be. So just replace the words so that they are your own words and tune into the feeling. Okay, or if it's too complicated to replace the words, and just repeat after me and just tune into the feeling, because it will still work even if you use different words, because it's about feeling and moving the energy. That's the important thing about EFT, not so much the words. Okay, right. If you're ready, then let's do the tapping. Right, there is the picture there with the tapping points. Hopefully you can also see me with the tapping. So we tap and we talk. Okay, if you get lost somewhere halfway through, absolutely fine, no problem. Then just try again, get back in when you can. Oh, there is a question. Do we have to say it out loud? It has more power if you do say it out loud. If you are by yourself somewhere, that's absolutely fine. But if you are, I don't know, with your headphones and there's people around, then you can say it in your head. Generally, it's better to say it out loud. But to be honest, when I do tapping by myself, I just tune into the feeling and I say things in my head. But obviously, I'm a practitioner. So when I work with clients, obviously, we do say things out loud. Right, so it's up to you. Okay, good. So side of the hand. So repeat after me and just copy the same points. Even though I feel overwhelmed, or whatever word you want to use, even though I feel overwhelmed, I love and accept myself anyway. Even though I'm worried about this situation, I accept myself and I'm okay. Even though I feel overwhelmed with the situation and I can feel it in my chest or in my belly, I accept myself and I'm okay. Okay, and we start through the tapping points just with the shorter phrases. We're just naming the feeling. This feeling of overwhelm, top of the head. Oh, side of the eye, eyebrow point. I feel overwhelmed. Side of the eye. This overwhelming feeling in my tummy. Under the eye. All those thoughts racing around in my head. Under the nose. I have to worry about all those things. Chin point. I'm worried and it overwhelms me. Collarbone point. All these feelings in my body. Under the arm. It's hard to breathe when I feel this way. Finger point, starting with the thumb. This feeling of overwhelm. Index finger. I feel overwhelmed. Middle finger. This overwhelm isn't helping. Ring finger. It keeps me stuck. Little finger. This intense feeling of overwhelm. Okay, let's just take a deep breath for a moment. So we've done one round. Deep breath. Maybe another deep breath, especially if some emotions came up. A couple of deep breaths. Get back into your body. Feel calm. And then tune back in. Tune back into your body. See if you can locate the feeling if you've set a target. And see if it's moved. You know, sometimes we can start with an anxiety in our chest, and after a bit of tapping, sometimes it moves like, oh, now I feel it in my tummy area. Or maybe we've given it a color, and it's like, oh, it was a red anxiety in my chest, and now it feels it's orange or it's yellow. So that can also, that's a sign that things are shifting. Okay, sometimes things can actually go up a little bit and get more intense because we are tuning in. If that happens, just keep tapping, right? Okay, so hopefully you've located your feeling, your target. Maybe give it another number on a scale from 1 to 10 and see whether the number has gone up or down, just to give you some feedback. And then we do another round of tapping. And this time we add the word like still. If we still feel overwhelmed, then, we just use, even though I still feel overwhelmed, or we talk about this remaining feeling of overwhelm, okay? Okay, there is a question. Thank you, Emma. Does it reinforce the overwhelm to say it out loud? I'm feeling worried. I'm feeling overwhelmed. No, it doesn't, because we're just naming what we're feeling. You know, I said earlier that we need to accept where we are, and I know some people are afraid of saying feelings out loud. Some people also worried about things like the law of attraction. Do I attract the wrong things? But we are not doing this for a long period of time. If You know, if you work on exactly the same thing for hours and hours and hours, days after days, weeks after weeks, it might be different. But because we are tapping, we are moving the energy and we are trying to lower the intensity of the emotion. If we ignore the feelings, we're just shoving it under the carpet, but it's still there and we can't see it. So EFT is quite an honest approach. So we say it out loud, we accept where we are, and then we move the energy. So don't worry, it doesn't reinforce it, it doesn't make it worse. It's actually helping us to get better. And that's the whole point of the emotional freedom technique. Right. Okay. If you're ready, let's do another round then. And you can repeat after me, you can use your own words or, you know, or use the example, but remember to tune into your body, whatever you're working on, to make sure you have that connection to the feeling, because it needs to be active in our energy system so we can move it around and release it. Okay, so even though I still feel overwhelmed, I love and accept myself anyway. Side of the hand point. Even though I'm still worried about the situation, I accept myself and I'm okay. Even though I still feel some overwhelm about the situation, and I can feel it in my chest or my belly. I accept myself and I'm okay. Right. Step through the points, starting top of the head. This remaining feeling of overwhelm. Eyebrow point. I still feel overwhelmed. Side of the eye. This remaining overwhelming feeling in my body. Under the nose, under the eye. All those thoughts racing around my head. Under the nose. I have to worry about all those things. Chin point. I'm still worried and it overwhelms me. Collarbone. All these remaining feelings in my body. Under the arm. It's hard to breathe when I feel this way. Finger points. This remaining feeling of overwhelm. Next finger. I still feel overwhelmed. Ring finger. This overwhelm isn't helping. Ring finger. It keeps me stuck. This remaining feeling of overwhelm. Just very quickly, we're going to do another round and I'm just going to change the words a little bit. Okay. Right. This feeling of overwhelmed. Eyebrow. I've been carrying this around for so long. Side of the eye. This is not helping me. Under the eye. It's keeping me stuck. Under the nose. Maybe I can let go of this feeling. Chin point. Maybe it is safe to let go of this feeling. Collarbone. Maybe I can take the lesson and let go of the pain. Under the arm. This remaining feeling of overwhelm. Finger points. It is safe to let it go. Next finger. I'd rather be calm than overwhelmed. Next finger. I choose to take my power back. Ring finger. It's safe to let go of this remaining overwhelm. Little finger, letting it all go now. Okay, well done. Now take a deep breath, couple of deep breaths. You've just had your first EFT experience, or perhaps not the first if you've done this before. Right, now tune back into your body again and just think, has anything changed? See if you can measure the intensity again on a scale from 1 to 10, or maybe it's even gone down to 0. And what I'd like you to do is put your before and after number in the chat. So if you started with a 7 and now it's a 4, put 7, 4 with a dash or space in between. Or if you started with a 5 and now it's a 2, 5, 2, or maybe it's just gone down a little bit, or maybe it stayed the same. That's absolutely fine. 8-3, thank you. There is a question about the words. Let me just explain. It's not about the specific words. So first what we do is we have our target with the tapping. 9, 8, 8, 5, brilliant, thank you. So we have our target and we just have to name things as they are. Then once the intensity is a little bit lower, we can just bring in some truisms, they're called. So things like, maybe it is safe to let it go. I'm open to letting it go. No. Or I've been carrying this around for so long and it's not helping. So once we're out of fight or flight, because the tapping has a calming effect, we can bring in, some people call it positive tapping. I wouldn't go, I would just say, stay with the truth. Be open to the possibility of that, the fact that you can let it go. It's not helping to stay stuck. Hope that answered your question. So it's not about the actual words, it's more about the process of moving forward. Right. Okay, so we've had, yes, quite a lot, from 8 down to 5, from 7 till 3, fantastic, from 8 till 3, brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing. 6 to 6, okay, it just stayed. So if it still feels intense, just keep tapping. We're almost at the end. So just, I think you also get access to the recording. So watch the recording again, or just do tapping by yourself, okay, until you feel calmer. Or if you don't feel like tapping, just use the breathing, the 5-7 breathing, to bring your emotional level down so that you feel more comfortable. Right, okay, we've only got a few minutes left. I just want to say a few quick words about negative emotions in general, because often we have a specific story that we tell ourselves in our mind, and negative emotions are linked to those stories that we tell ourselves and also to others. And these unhelpful stories can keep us stuck in survival mode. They can keep us stressed. And survival mode means we have this tunnel vision. We are in fight or flight. We can't really use our full logical power, and it will be very difficult to find solutions when we're in fight or flight mode. And EFT can be used to get out of this survival mode. EFT, together with the breath work, we can gain more perspective and feel calmer. And when we're calmer, somehow things open up and we can challenge ideas like, what other viewpoint is possible? Is there another explanation? Was this person really mean? Could they have just had a bad day maybe? And did I trigger them without realizing? What other explanation is there for an uncomfortable situation or a comment, as an example? And I do like that quote from Max Planck originally, but Dr. Wayne Dyer also used it quite often. And it's, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things that you do look at change. Right, there's a question about chronic pain. Can EFT help with chronic pain? Yes, my experience is it can help. Obviously, I cannot make any promises of cure. That's not allowed. I have personally worked with people with chronic pain over a number of years, and the tapping helps to reduce the intensity of the pain, because often we have these stories, we have certain beliefs that can keep us stuck. So yes, EFT can help with chronic pain. Right, okay. It can also help with cravings. Yes, absolutely. Right. Okay. A couple of suggestions. I know we're almost out of time. So when we have these stories that we tell ourselves, or, you know, if you're a sort of person that talks to their friend on the phone and talks about uncomfortable situation or events, why not tap? You know, if you are on the phone, you know, you don't have to tell your friend, but you tuned in when you tell, oh, and the shop assistant said this, and I think that was really rude. Or, you know, oh, a family member, she did this, and then she said that, and can you believe that? You know, when we tell these stories, if we tap at the same time, we can release the energy behind that emotion, and then we can feel a bit calmer. So tell and tap, that's a suggestion I'd like to make. And don't worry about the setup statement. You know, the important thing is to be tuned into the feeling while you're tapping. Another suggestion I have is to use EFT on a daily basis to release your emotions, any negative emotions that might still be going around in your head, especially in the evening, because these would be the things that keep you awake and that sort of keep your thoughts from spiraling perhaps, and then the emotions come up. But if you release those emotions, and even though I'm still angry because my colleague did this or said that, I accept how I feel. Like, where do you feel the anger? You know, is it in your chest? There's knot, and I've got this knot in my stomach. I feel so angry because she said this or she did that. You know, you just tap through, and then you feel calmer and you release. And as I said before, don't worry about the words, just feel the emotion and tap. You don't even have to say anything, as long as you can feel it and just tap through the points to keep the energy moving. Or if you are in a situation, if you're like outdoors or you wake up in the middle of the night and you feel like you can't tap in that moment, you can also use the touch and breathe technique. So it's just touch, you know, take a deep breath, tune into the emotion, and just tap on the point. Just touch the point, the eyebrow, the side of the eye, deep breath, feel the emotion, and then set the intention to let it go. Touch and breathe. So that's something you can use if you wake up in the middle of the night, or if you are maybe in public or somewhere where it would look very weird if you start tapping in the middle of the road. Right, okay, another question. Do we need to brush off the energy afterwards? That's a good question. If it's something that you like doing, you can sort of brush it off. But to be honest, we use the measuring. We usually tap until the energy or the intensity is low. So if you do something that's a 6 or a 7, you just keep tapping until the energy is maybe at a 1 or 2, because then you don't need to brush it off. You've moved the energy, you automatically feel better. But if you feel you're running out of time and you're still a 4 and a 5, then that might also help. Or do at the end a bit of the 5-7 breathing to calm you down. Right, okay, so just to sum up, the 3 steps to increase your well-being: obviously become aware how you feel, then take action with the breathing and the tapping. Obviously use the tapping regularly, because your body learns to let go, and the more you do it, the quicker you get results. I've been doing it for years, and I just sometimes need to do like 3-4 taps and then it's gone, because my body's like, oh, I know what we're doing. Okay, good. Let me just get through. Oops. All right, now are you ready to take action? Just knowing is not enough, so we have to do something. So I suggest to make a plan, use the strategies, set a reminder on your phone, put a little EFT note on your bathroom mirror or on the fridge to remind you to do the work, because just knowing about it isn't enough. And I've got some free resources that will be shared with you, but also a little disclaimer: for anything that's really deep-rooted, very negative, things like big T traumas or car accidents or anything intense, even chronic pain, I suggest to work with a qualified, experienced practitioner. okay? Because you do want to stay safe, and sometimes you need somebody from the outside to help you, guide you through the process, right? Okay, so these are the free resources, an EFT manual, another manual, 2 videos of me again explaining briefly what EFT is and where it came from. And there is also an American organization called the Tapping Solution. They also explain about what EFT is. Any questions? If any of you have to go, and I'm running a few minutes over, I'm very sorry. It was such an exciting topic. Right. I think there was a question about cravings. With cravings, if you, let's say, have a craving for a cookie or chocolate, just have that in front of you, tune into the feeling, and then also ask yourself, what am I really craving? Especially with food cravings, for example, I'm just making this up, it might not be food, I'm sorry, it could be anything else, but ask yourself, what are you really craving? Because sometimes cravings can be about an emotion, and sometimes we might feel lonely, or we might feel dehydrated, or we might feel tired, and we just use a certain thing or substance to help us because we're not really in tune and not really aware of what we really need. But if it was a craving, you could just do this craving, oh, I need this chocolate, I need it now, I must have it now, I don't have a choice, I must have it now. Whatever you feel in that moment, whatever your head's telling you, or just this craving, this craving, this craving, this craving, tune in and tap until you feel you have a choice, whether you can have the thing that you crave or whether you can leave it. I hope that answers your question very briefly. Well, there was a question about slides. I might have missed that. Right, let me just go quickly through the question. I'm sorry if you have to go, that's absolutely fine. I am sorry if I'm running over a little bit, but this is just so exciting. If we start off on the left-hand side, do we need to continue down the left, or can we change? No, you can. Actually, you might have noticed me changing from left to right. Sometimes I use both hands, sometimes